10 o'clock whistle. Did you know you're coming down for like a hot yoga spa day today? One of these days we'll get a, I showed Steve, our previous owner, the swamp cooler. It's like we just put that up in the middle of the classroom. It just radiates cold all day long. But we'll survive. We'll make this quick and get you out back out to the fresh air. I can tell you from being here every day, at least at some point when you walk out the door, it'll be like, twice as refreshing. So thanks for coming. It's one of those fun classes today, hydrangeas. You know, being a 30-year nursery guy, that's a common question we always get. We kind of jokingly call it the wonder shrub around here. Everybody wants something that blooms all year, keeps its leaves, doesn't get disease, has berries, perfect color, no bugs, no nothing, just a perfect shrub, right? So hydrangea's pretty close because it's one of our few options. We'll talk about some shade and some sun ones, but I want flowers June all the way till frost. So this is one of the few choices that we can add into our gardens here in the Pacific Northwest that are going to get us flower power all the way through the summer into fall till frost. So certainly a great choice for more than one season, I guess, as we go through. We're going to show you a whole bunch of different hydrangeas on the slideshow. I brought way too many up here. You can ask about all these, of course, if you like. We'll do questions probably right out at the end of class, just so we can keep it going and get you out of here at a reasonable time. So there's me, Mr. Trevor, Mr. Class Guy here. If we kind of start with big leaf hydrangeas, or some people call these mop head hydrangeas, these are our typical big, around here, big round blue flowers, right? Everybody's seen those around in gardens. We'll talk about how you can play with the colors and get different tones. But that's going to be our large leaf, big round flower, the best hydrangea for that part shade to shade location. I get a whole bunch of people on the sun that, yeah, I grow that in full sun. I'm not saying you can't, but typically we have to water an extra heavy amount. We probably get a little sunburn. I drive around, I see some that are happy, some that are not so happy in full sun. You're always going to be best with this type of hydrangea, if you ask me, morning sun, afternoon shade. You know, you get a good half-day sun. It could be the opposite. I've got shade all day, and then I've got a late blast. The late afternoon, evening is fine as well. But if we have it in that spot that gets sun up, heat of the day in the crest, and then shade late in the day, I think you're going to struggle a little bit with the watering, and certainly with a little sunburn on some of them. There's a few I'll mention that will take a little bit more sun. Like I said, this is the best flower power summer to fall for the garden. We're going to do half shade, half sun here. We'll do a little both. The biggest thing with big leaf or mop head hydrangeas is the color is up to you. There's very few of these. You'll see them in the pots on this side. You know, whites don't change. If I buy a white, I'm white. That's an easy answer. Maybe when the flower is at just aging towards the end, I get a tiny little hint of like a periwinkle blue or a light pink in there maybe, but it's going to be white. The other ones, the blue, the purple, the red, the pink, it's all on soil pH. So that's what we'll kind of learn maybe to play with a little bit today. You know, if you're like my mother, retired, she loves her hydrangeas, she has the calendar out, she's putting 6 tablespoons of this and doing this and playing with that, and I want it darker, I want it lighter. You really can play with the color of a lot of these just so it's exactly what you want in your garden, okay? So that's going to be on pH. Around here, we're all acid soil. I mean, I'd be shocked if anybody in here went home and slapped a pH meter in the ground and said, wow, my pH is 8. I'd be like, hey, are you sure? You know, there's certainly pockets here and there, maybe in old vegetable gardens in certain areas, but the vast majority is going to be slightly acidic to acidic. The more acidic, the more purple, dark cobalt blue, lighter blue towards neutral. We start to get into alkaline side, then we get our light pinks to that raspberry red color. So that's kind of our color change on those. But like I said, there are some good pure white ones. I don't know what it is the last few years. I'm kind of an old school guy, so I like people liking their white flowers. Everybody wants white roses again. They want white hydrangeas again, a lot of white perennials. Goes with everything, right? So there are some good white options out there. Now you'll see up here, some of these will have a lace cap type flower. You know, big flat flower, the flower's open on the outside, and then I've got that sterile center. Same type of hydrangea. We can play with the color, but that would be our lace cap flower, or we have the big round mop head types would be the other type. So look at the biggest thing with hydrangeas. I've been doing this about 30 years, and about 2000 is when everything changed. Does everyone remember the Endless Summer Hydrangea was the first original one that came out? We still carry that one down there, the original they call it now. So that was the crave in plant breeding. Everybody wanted hydrangea, but they wanted it shorter, they wanted it easier to prune, they want more flower. That's what modern hydrangea is all about. We get repetitive flower, we can prune it to the ground, it blooms on new wood, not old wood. There's a place, I think, for both in the garden, but realize, unless you give me the name of the one you have, I can't tell you which one you have by looking at the flower. It'd be very rare that I'm gonna go, ooh, that's an old Nico Blue. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. But you would know in your own yard, if I prune this down heavy that summer, I don't get much flower, you have an old wood bloomer. So that's gonna reduce your flexibility on how hard you can cut it back. If I have a big garden, big part shade garden, and I'm looking for a big specimen, you know, a 6-7 foot, 7 foot wide hydrangea, there's no better plant than old school hydrangea. That is a really cool plant if you have the room for it. Most people, I think, now tell me, I want the hydrangea, but I have more like 3 or 4 feet by 3 or 4 feet. Now we use the modern ones because now we have that flexibility. We can go out in March, we can cut it back, let it grow up, it still blooms right away on new wood. I don't have to wait another year to flower. If you don't know what you have, cut it back next spring and see what happens. Cross the fingers. You're probably getting no bloom. You're like, okay, I got an old one, I can't do that with it. At most, again, if it was purchased in the last 20 years, chances are it's probably one of the new school type hydrangeas, okay? So that's gonna dictate pruning. I mean, we don't want, I love working in my yard, but I don't have to work in my yard every day, all day. And that's, again, I think helping you with the pruning aspect of it, kind of the modern hydrangeas. If we're talking about feeding on these guys, we definitely want to keep the hydrangeas fed. This isn't something we got to go out and pump Miracle-Gro on every month, but I would prefer you use like a good organic granular food. We do EB Stone here, rose and flower food, rhododendron food wouldn't be that bad, especially if we like our blue to purple colors. Some of that put down in March, at least one more time here in early summer. If you haven't done it already, do it now. That's the minimum. If you really want to kick it in, maybe we do that 3 times a year. Some good mulch, some good compost around the base. We'll lock that onto the ground and also help keep it wet, because they don't call them hydrangeas, if we don't need to learn Latin today, but hydra, water. They love water, and that's the big thing about hydrangeas here in our dry summer climate. We have to irrigate them a little bit, especially things that are newly planted, okay? Now, if we look at a few, I'm going to show you, we still carry some great old school varieties of hydrangea, and then again, we carry a lot of the modern ones. Speaking as the guy, A, who runs this place, and B, buys most of our plants, it's getting to hydrangea overload time. That's with a lot of plants. There are so many out there to choose from. People shop online, they look at proven winners, they look at this brand, they look at that brand. Why don't you carry this, and why don't you carry that? We could probably have 80 hydrangeas in here, and I still wouldn't have everybody that somebody requested during the season. So sometimes I have to pick and choose a little bit. I think we carry kind of the best from all those different series. But certainly if there's one we're not carrying, talk to me, leave your name on the wish list, and we'll see what we can do about getting it in for you. So a few of the old school ones, Nico Blue. You know, that's an old fashioned one, been around for decades, decades, and decades. That's an old variety with the big, huge blue flower. It would look just like Endless Summer, the original, except it gets giant, and again, doesn't bloom on old wood. So I'm looking for a larger specimen for the back of my garden versus something I prune and keep a little bit smaller. Same with glowing embers. If I want to go towards the purple side of it, or red, if I play with the pH, glowing embers would give me that. The Nico Blue is going to be more like that cobalt blue to pastel pink if we play with our colors. We can look at some old lace caps like Red Wings. You know, Blaumies, we carry some old-fashioned lace caps, just monstrous flowers on those. And again, a really impressive specimen if we have the room for a larger plant. But those would certainly be worth taking a look too. That next one you'll see Miss Sayori, oh, right next to me here. So this is kind of, to me, the essence of modern hydrangea breeding. Look at that beautiful plant right there. So that's what came out a few years ago. There's a lot more like this now. But if I look at that Miss Sayori, what's different? A, I got purple foliage, which is, I have one of these in my own garden, and that is really cool to contrast with some leaf color. I've got bicolor flowers on this as well, so I would have a painted edge with a lighter center. So this is, to me, a great example of modern hydrangea. Foliage color, repeat flowering, doesn't get very big. I can prune it if I want to. I can let it get bigger if I don't want to prune it. It's really got some good flexibility in there. And having that burgundy leaf means, yes, I can take more sun. The more sun I get on that, the darker the foliage I'm going to have. Mine gets maybe 3 hours at the end of the day, so I leaf out this color. By now I'm mainly just green like the rest of them, with just a little tiny hint of that purple in there. But if I had a little more sun, I would get to enjoy that dark foliage as well. Okay? We got some really funky variegated flowers. You'll see pistachio, which I don't have right now, but we do have revolution hydrangeas we'll see here in a minute, and that's the same idea. These are almost like art pieces, all kinds of fun colors, kind of tie-dye that mix into that same flower. Spike is one, a new style that blooms on wood. You'll see your everlasting. This, I think, is a really cool series. I want to make sure we're clear on this one. This is not a new wood bloomer, but this was a plant, the series that was bred for the floral culture. So massive flowers that last for 4 months. So it opens one color, and every week I look at it, it's going to progress, not turn brown, not dry, that you had a deadheaded, but it's going to look like an art piece as it goes through the entire summer and the fall. So they're just starting to open. You can see one here, the amethyst. I might have lime green, purples, blues, silvers, or again, if I play with the pH, pinks, reds, silvers, different colors kind of mixing together, but really interesting flowers on that whole series. So that's Revolution. The Bride, the white one, is going to mix me with like some lime, some white, some different colors in those tones. Then even if we did like Everlasting Crimson, I want to go red again with the limes and the silvers and different colors as those progress. So that to me is a great cut flower if you like to bring them in as well. But shorter plant, big thick stems, and a massive flower. That's one of the ones, never see them flop even when they're young here. That one's got a really sturdy stem on it. Now again, the original selection was Endless Summer. This came out from Bailey Nurseries, a place back in Minnesota. Spent a lot of time breeding a whole series of these. We carry a lot of the members of the Endless Summer collection here. I've got Twist and Shout out there. You'll see a couple others coming up. But I want to point out Pop Star. That's right on the ground right here. That's the brand new one for 2023. So we've went through a lot of those already. There will be some more trickling in here in summer too. But that's the smallest one I think I've ever seen. That one I could grow in a pot, as you can see, or the ground. Big, huge lace cap flower on like a 2 to 3 foot by 2 to 3 foot plant. That is probably the smallest hydrangea these days that we carry. And even on a young plant like that, bud still coming on new growth, that'll probably have 50, 60 flowers on it as we go through the course of the summer of the first season. So Pop Star might be one to consider if you've got a small space, or even again for a nice container garden. That would be a great one. And again, I can play with the color. You know, if you don't like the blue, we can turn that pink, or on the other side as well. Probably my favorite in that series is Summer Crush. I brought one up here somewhere. It's over in the middle, right over there. The nice thing with Bailey, if I look at those tags, there's literally a color wheel on there. So I can look at a gradient. If I go acidic, that one is going to be purple, like bright purple. And I go all the way to the other end, I'm going to be that color, raspberry red. Maybe what sometimes is confusing, I bring all these plants up here, you're like, well, why is that one blue? And why is that one pink? And why is that one red? And why are these different colors? Think of our growers. You know, they're planting it in potting soil. If you took that home and bought our good organic potting soil, there's no acidity in there. So what's going to happen? My flower is going to be pink or red, right? If I want it blue or purple, I get an acidic potting mix. Or I put it in the ground here, and then we're going to be the little different color. On the same plant, you can really play with the colors. I think my mother even has got one dialed in where she puts her potassium nitrate on half and not the other half, and it's like, all right, not my thing, but you kind of see even like a little different color on the same plant that way, right? Now again, white is something that just won't change. When I see these age, I'll get just a tiny little bit of color on the flower, but you can see out in the front there, That's a Monrovia one we'll see in a minute. But the Blushing Bride is in that blue endless summer pot. That is just pure white. I don't want blue, I don't want red, I don't want any of that. I just want clear, easy white. So I'm going to look for something like that Blushing Bride. Okay? Now, Monrovia is probably our biggest supplier. I think everybody knows Monrovia. I think the finest grower in the country. They do some fabulous plants. They're always looking for the latest, greatest. Their whole series of hydrangeas will continue to grow. We call that the Seaside Serenade selections. And we carry all of them here. I just re-upped this week because we were sold out. So we have, I think, every one of them in stock. I say that, I'll knock on wood, but I think we do have all of them still. But there's some good choices in there, again, depending on what you want in your garden. We see some, like if I'm going to go dwarf, well, we'll go through the pictures here first. So Cape Lookout, white with that lime green center right there, the second one from the other table. That's going to give me a big, huge white flower, little lime green in the center. Right when it's done blooming, here I'll see just a tiny little bit of like a sky blue in the flower before it dries. And again, repeat blooming. So when that one's done, turning brown, we deadhead it. Another one's already up to replace it. And another one replaces that. So we keep blooming all the way till frost. Cape Hatteras is this one right here. And if I want to get towards like that deep burgundy red, and again, a very small plant, that's a fabulous one. We've been out of that for a while. We just got a bunch of those in yesterday. So that Cape Hatteras would be a good choice for you. Cape May, I didn't bring one in, but that would be a lace cap example of one of these new style hydrangeas. So again, I can play with the color, and you'll see the differences. I wrote Cape May Serrata. Why did he put that on there? So we'll talk about mountain hydrangeas or Serrata hydrangeas here in a minute. But when I have Serrata type in there, a little bit more cold hardy, which doesn't maybe matter to most of us around here, but the fall color is far superior. I hate to say, you know, typical hydrangeas, if you have one, they kind of do what? They kind of turn yellow and turn to snot. And you just kind of grab a clump and throw it in the yard waste at the end of the year and you're done. This is one you'll look out in the yard with Serratas and go, oh wow, that's like burning bush. I got purple, I got red, I got real bright colors on the leaves before they drop, and then we start over again the next season. Fire Island by far is the most popular one around here. Where did I put it? I got one up here somewhere, right in the front there. So that's one, again, that's the one I have in my shade garden. So I have that little bit of color on the foliage, the more sun, the more purple burgundy, but I've also got that bicolor flower. Now that one they're saying does not really ever go blue. If you're just like, I don't want any blue, I don't want any of that color, it's not going to go blue. I've had mine about 6 years now, and mine's about ready to full bloom. We got about 100 buds coming out on it. They're just opening, and that is one that turned kind of a burgundy with that white in my own yard. So I'm not going to really go to that blue side of things. I'm always going to stay towards the pinky red, kind of that dark tone. I'm not going to get towards the other end of the colors. The Hamptons I didn't bring in, but that's another one with a little bit of foliage color, some purple on it, and a little bit clearer, large flower. That one I can go pink, or I gotta go a periwinkle color. I'm not going to go too dark either way, but kind of those pastels on that one. Martha's Vineyard is right there. So like Cape Hatteras, what's the difference? I'm more pink versus on the red side to me. So if I want like pink, I'm going to go for Martha's Vineyard. Another super dwarf one, easy to grow, very short, new wood blooming. And this one, probably next to Fire Island, is the most popular. So this is Newport, and probably of all of them up here, that's the shortest. So everybody that wants like super dwarf, 3 foot tall is it. And again, I want to get towards deep purple on that. That's going to be a great choice for you in our soil. It will also go to that pinky red side on the alkaline end of it. But probably if I like the purple and I want compact, that is probably the first plant I'm going to send you towards out there. I think that's a really good choice for the modern gardens. And then again, you'll see Outer Banks. I have those out there, another lace cap variety. Now, these were new last year. They didn't have any new introductions, but we do have both these in again. You'll see the newest ones are Glacier Bay. So that's a white lace cap, which is very bright. The difference with that, you can't maybe tell in the picture, is that's got black stem. So if you look at those plants out there, very interesting combination of color when I've got the deep green foliage, dark black stem, and that plain white lace cap flower makes a really nice contrast. So that may be one to look at. Or Crystal Cove, that'll be in my yard someday. That's my wife's name, so she's already said you have to plant one of those. So we'll have that one in my yard here one of these days. But that's another lace cap with the 2 flowers. If I look at this Miss Sayori and I see that dark edge with the light center, that's Crystal Cove, but on a big lace cap flower. That's a really interesting one, again, that I don't see a lot of other ones looking like that. Now we have some Let's Dance down there, which I gotta be honest, I'm not quite sure what Let's Dance has to do with hydrangeas, but Proven Winners has decided to name all of theirs Rave, Big Band, Diva, Rhythmic Blue, all these names. I'm like, okay, that's what you guys want to call them, go ahead. But we do have a lot of the Proven Winner ones down there. If you're a internet searcher, shopper, you tend to see a lot of Proven Winner stuff on there. They do a lot of social media marketing and things. So that's one a lot of people call, email us and ask, hey, I saw one online, do you have the new Big Band, the Diva, whatever it is? And we do have a lot of those down in the corner as well. You'll see a couple Divas got the big lace cap flower. Now here's the Serrata. So if you look at Serrata, like I mentioned, the biggest difference with this, it's just like our big leaf hydrangeas we were just talking about, but I probably add a little bit more sun tolerance. I definitely add superior fall color. If I'm looking to add that season of interest, I'm going to look for a Serrata type hydrangea. They're going to be lace cap, big and impressive flowers. I can still play with the pH on most of them and change the color, but you'll see some good options down there. Tiny tough stuff, mini tough stuff. We got tough stuff red. Bluebird's an old-fashioned one. If you haven't seen Bluebird, maybe around, that's one you'll see in an old garden that's probably as tall as me and twice as wide. So just a beautiful big layered hydrangea with the massive flowers on it. That's a great old specimen style hydrangea. You'll see some new ones out like Pink Dynamo. Thought I brought one of these in. If you look at the darkest foliage up here in that back left corner, you see how dark burgundy purple that is? So that's the new Pink Dynamo. So again, repeat flower, lace cap type, dark foliage, and that one would take a little more sun as well. We just got some more of those. Now if we do a couple other styles of hydrangeas here, so this is Hydrangea arborescence. Has anyone tried any of these? Big, huge, like, well, not quite that big, like basketball size sometimes. You can get pretty big flowers on these. I've got one I brought in just to kind of show you. Right there, this is limetta. It'll have a little lime and some white in it. We can do pinks, we can do whites. You've probably seen Incredible. There's a whole bunch of trade names out there now. But this is what we call smooth hydrangeas. So totally sun tolerant, super hardy, easy to grow. You can grow those all day in sun. They need some water again. I'll tell you, my favorite thing with those is almost like a hedge. There's a house in North Everett I drive by all the time when I'm going out of the Arboretum there at Legion Park to volunteer. Lady got smart years ago and planted probably 30 of these in a row along her driveway, and they are spectacular right now. Just huge white blooms. She's got a beautiful green hedge, full sun, doesn't have much maintenance to it, and she gets flower power again all summer, all fall out of that, okay? So a few smooth type hydrangeas, you'll see Incredible. Even some pink, like I mentioned, like the Invincible Ruby. There's a few different cultivars of those out there. So oak leaf hydrangeas. Anybody done oak leaf hydrangeas? Got a couple? I brought one in here if I can find it in my jungle. There it is, right in the front. You see that oak leaf? So that's a totally different foliage, right? Looks like a gigantic oak leaf. And this will have a panicle type flower. So big cone shape that'll always open white. Then as we get towards fall, I'll get some pink in it. That does never turn blue. It's not a pH color like these other ones we've talked about. It's always going to be that color. Doesn't matter where you plant it. These can take some sun. They can take some shade too, but sun usually is a little better on oak leaves than shade. And that is the top of the totem pole for fall color. So I'm going to have purples, oranges, yellows, reds, burgundies, every shade in between, and some really cool peely bark on those in the winter. So that's one we kind of add a little bit extra season of interest to those. In other parts of the country, like the southeast, you know, that's almost like blackberry, I hate to say it, down in their neck of the woods, where it grows wide and it re-roots and it forms thickets and takes up big areas. Up here, very tidy little garden specimen. You're not going to have to worry about it going too crazy. There's great dwarf ones, which is usually what we carry anyway, but I'm going to typically have a, you know, 3, 4, maybe 5 foot tall hydrangea with that spectacular foliage, and again, a nice flower as well. So ruby slippers, I just got some more. If I want to go darker red quicker, I'm going to choose something like ruby slippers. It's like, I'm not a white person, I like a little bit of color, and we would choose like ruby slippers because it'll be white very short period of time before it goes pink, dark pink, and then all the way towards that ruby red. Jetstream, a little bit slower, but I'll get some good pink in that. Now the last big section here is what we call PG hydrangeas. Anyone got PGs going? I think this has been the most popular shrub for about 5 years now. So we can do shrub, or if I look up back, that's not an 8 foot tall shrub, that's a tree. So that's a really good idea, maybe as a small flowering tree as well. But you can see the PGs right now. I tried to pick a few where you can see a little bit of pink coming in on a couple of those, right? Not just all white, but that's the progression. All these are going to look very similar, but to me, as we go through the choices here, what am I going to look for? How big do I want it to get, and how quick do I want it to turn pink or red? Those are our two choices when it comes to PG. We're going to grow these all out in full sun. This is not a shade hydrangea. This is one we want at least half day sun to all day sun. We don't want to do them in shade. They won't bloom quite as nice, but I can have that in hot cooking sun again as long as I have water. They're just starting now, or a few weeks ago. This is going to bloom all the way through the fall till we get frost. So I had flowers on mine still coming out last September, early October. Then we get cold, they go dormant. Sweet, I'll see you again next year. That's a really easy one. All of the flowers, like I said, are going to open lime or white, and then week to week change color as we go through the summer. That's going to be with every single one of them. The choice again is going to be how fast do you want to get out of the white and into the pink or red, okay? The easiest thing to me with PG hydrangeas is they are absolute no-brainers for gardeners because they bloom on new wood. You can do whatever you want to these as far as pruning them back in March, because wherever I cut, I'm going to shoot up and I'm going to have twice the flower next year. So I don't have to worry about, am I cutting it back too far? Did I leave enough wood? If you want it taller, don't prune it as much. If you want to keep it a little bit lower, prune it a little harder. I'm always going to have flowering on new wood on all PG hydrangeas. So very, very easy. You'll see a bunch here, dwarf. You know, if I pick out a couple, there's like, they got some great names on these too, like puffer fish. It's my favorite new one. I'm buying one of those this year because I gotta have a puffer fish. Bobo, which I'm not sure how that has to do with hydrangea either. Firelight tidbit, little lime punch. There's a lot of really good dwarf ones, and if I want to get down again like 2-3 feet, I'm going to choose one of those little dwarf guys. I don't have room for a big plant. If I want a specimen, something as big as me, or even a little 6 or 7 foot tall one with massive flowers, I've got just as many choices for an extra large specimen grower as well if I want a bigger plant. But both those types we would go in sun, and again, we would just choose our particular color. Now, little lime is the one I had. I say rest in peace because me, I like to trial things for our customers. So I took out my little lime this year out of for about 10 years because I was like, I want to try a new one. That's where Bobo is going. So I'm trying a Bobo now. Plus, if I confess, I'm not a huge pink guy. I like a little touch here and there, but I would choose white over pink all day long. So I'm going to choose, for me, in my own taste, Bobo, because that one really doesn't turn much pink at all until really late in the season. I just want white. I want that nice bright white flower. So little lime is the dwarf version of lime light. So if I want 4 feet tall, you want little lime like I had. If I want 6 or 7 feet tall, this is lime light right here. I want lime green, then white, then light pink as we go through the summer. So I can pick my kind of size on those. You've also got little lime punch now. If you think of old school Hawaiian punch color, I don't want light pink, I don't want the white. I want to get to that really cool kind of Hawaiian punch color, that cranberry red pink we'll call it. That's the one I'm going to buy because that's another newer one that'll get you the color a little bit quicker. Limelight Prime, you know, this is a breeder thing, I'll be honest. I could not tell you the difference between that and Limelight, except for the stem is a little thicker and it doesn't flop quite as much when they're young. So this would be maybe the improvement on the original Limelight, is one of the first ones that came out. Now we've got a couple other ones out there you'll see. Early Evolution, and there's Firelight Tidbit right next to it. Tidbit came out last year. I just got a bunch of those because that was the most popular one last year. Everybody wanted small, tiny, easy. That's a great one to choose. But I put these side by side because that, to me, you're choosing your color, you know, pink, red, white, how fast, but also how dense it is. If you look at some of these flowers here, some are more open panicles, big, huge cones, but I can see through them almost in layers, right? Other ones are going to look like a creamsicle, just a huge, dense cone that I'm going to have flowers from top to bottom. So if you look at some of the, even the ones that are open here, you can see a little bit more open on this, a little tighter on that. And again, depending on your taste, that's going to help us choose the right variety for you. Pinky Winky always makes me smile. I brought Pinky Winky up. He's over in the corner there. But Pinky Winky, that's a great picture because that's like midsummer. You can see the pink coming through the base, and I still have white on the tip, but that's what I'm going to have on something like Pinky Winky. And there's our Bobo, big, huge, dense white flower, and that's a great little dwarf one. I can't go deep enough for Barry White, but if you know Barry White, just kidding. So Barry White would be out of first editions, you know, like our Baileys. So that one, a lot of the vanilla strawberry, you'll see Strawberry Sundae on the next one, Barry White. These were all bred over in France. So Bailey's got a partner in Europe. They do a lot of PG hybridizing over there. They're able to bring these plants over for the gardeners in the States here. But something like Barry White's going to give me a massive flower and probably a little darker color on that too. You can see by the picture, I'm going to get a big bloom with a little bit darker tones on it. Probably around here, Vanilla Strawberry, that's the tall one, like a 7-footer, and Strawberry Sundae is about 4 or 5 foot. Those are probably the two winners around here. Every single season they come out. We go through quite a bit of those from Bailey's. Both really good attractive plants, and again, good dose of pink if you're going for that pink side of it. Both those are going to make you happy if you like a little pink color in the summer. Little Hottie is another one. I almost chose that. It was either that or Bobo for me. Little Hottie, I brought one up here, I'll show you, but it's a heavy bloomer, big flower, and again, a pretty short plant. That's I think one of their better ones. That's their most recent one that came out of Bailey's, I think 2 years ago. But certainly a great choice if I want a big bloom on a tight little plant. Now, the one thing, the last one here I put up, the last couple here, I kind of just show you the difference. So this is Diamond Rouge right here, okay? If I look at this front plant, big flower, you can see it's a little bit more open. It's another really popular one here. But you can see it's white now. I think there's just a first little bit of pink coming in on one of those flowers. You know, that is now, the picture on there is in about a month from now, and then I get towards fall, and what am I looking at? So that, to me, is PG in a nutshell. I've got white, I go to pink. By the time I get into fall, I'm going into those deep ruby pink or reddish colors. And that one, probably the quicker one, and it's going to probably be the closest to red. If you really want to go towards that red side of pink, that would probably be the one to choose, the Diamond Rouge. There's my puffer fish there. That's a newer one. And then if you like old lava lamps, we got lava lamp flare, and I just got some more of those in too. That's another one, kind of like Pinky Winky and a couple of the other ones too. The last one on the PGs is the tree. Now, I'll be honest, going back all these years, I can't tell you how many customers come in and find me and say, hey Trev, I need a favor. I'm looking for a tree for my yard. Okay, what you looking for? Well, you know, I want some flowers in the summer. Okay, how big do you want it to get? Oh, you know, maybe like 7 or 8 feet. Okay, is that really a tree? You know, was always my first question as I smile. You really want a large shrub, right? Well, no, I kind of want a tree. Okay, there's your answer. You know, PG hydrangea, I think, fills an absolute void in yards because I think a lot of people want the look of a tree. They can garden underneath it, use it as a centerpiece in sun, whatever. But I have that same thing as a shrub, totally manageable, totally prunable. It's going to bloom the entire summer fall. And that is a really popular choice these days for not a tree, but like, oh sweet, I pruned it a little bit. You might end up with something maybe 8-9 feet tall, you know, totally manageable in a small yard, or even a gigantic container as a beautiful specimen, and not 20 feet by 20 feet with roots everywhere and all the rest of it. So keep that in mind as you're looking out there.